Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blanks and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
You all for tuning into the GSMC television podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Trey Plotnicki, as always. And today we're going to be covering a couple topics today. Of course, it's Tuesday. It's Hot Doc Tuesday, as I like to say. I'm going to be covering some of the documentaries that I've been watching this week. And a lot of the shows I've been watching this week have centered around a similar theme. So I'm going to be incorporating all those themes all into one special ball of podcast for you today. That theme, of course, is going to be gaming. The first two documentaries that I actually watched today that I actually watched this week are this new documentary called High Score. I'll be talking about that right off the bat, as well as Perfect Bid, The Man Who Knew Too Much, a 2017 documentary that is released on YouTube, and it's free to watch on YouTube. So watch that as soon as you can. It's not that long, and it is very good. A lot of fun. Next up, we're going to be talking about some of Netflix's reality television. Love is Blind. I've been watching a lot of Floor is Lava, so I'll be chatting about that. And, of course, The Circle. Now, you know I'm a big Survivor fan. I am a slight Big Brother fan, so you know I love my reality competition. So I'll be talking about The Circle. I'm going to be talking about what I think they could do to improve, what I think they've done really, really well. Try to incorporate some new ideas into the mix, because I know it's a show from the UK, and they already have ideas for the show, obviously, and they've done multiple seasons for the show, obviously. So we'll be talking about that. And finally, if you stick around to the end, I'll be talking about the YouTube space and this new space called Twitch.television, Twitch.tv on the internet, and what that means for television as a whole. So stick around and I'll be talking about that at the end in one special place that is very near to my heart. So, right off the bat, let's talk about High Score on Netflix. This new show on Netflix called High Score. It's a 6-episode docu-series. Once again, it is very difficult to talk about television. Like I said on, Thursday now? Like I said on Thursday, it's very difficult to talk about television without kind of dipping in to what it means to have a show on Netflix. Like the docu-series, it's a mini-series, but also like some of the documentaries that they release on Netflix might as well be like made-for-TV specials. Like I imagine that you can see some of those documentaries on HBO, which was once considered television, but now the line is a bit blurred. So I'm doing my best to kind of like draw the line somewhere, but the line keeps being like like pushed back or pushed forward. So I'm just going to talk about what I feel centers around television, and High Score is one of them. 6-episode miniseries. I watched it all in a day, around 45 minutes an episode. It focuses on the beginning of video games. And what was really interesting about this documentary, if you want to learn everything for yourself, go ahead and watch it first, but I'm going to be talking about it as a whole. What was really interesting about this documentary, and I am an avid video game player myself, and I'm very glad that I can take this week and this episode to talk about video games. Video games were such a big part of my upbringing and who I became as a person. My first video game was Pokemon Blue on the Game Boy Color. And it's super interesting to see how this space was essentially created by 20-somethings, people who are my age right now. Obviously, they went to MIT, and I super did not go to MIT, but these people were people who just wanted to have fun. They followed the fun. So these were all of the stuff that I learned in this documentary was pretty much completely new to me. And this is coming from someone who has dived into the history of video games more than once, whether it be through like 10-minute videos on YouTube or like 7-minute videos on YouTube about like what was the first cartridge-based console. So I found out that video games primarily started in arcades, obviously. I think the arcade space is heavily underutilized today. I go to this arcade in Erie, Pennsylvania, which is called Round One, and it is unbelievably. It's so much fun. Like, I don't understand why anybody stopped going to the arcade. I know the home consoles are a thing now. I know that there are other ways to play video games and sometimes way more fun. But I feel like the space where you can design a controller that is specific to your game has gone largely unexplored in this like next generation of technology. There's this one game that's out round one, and there are round ones all across the country. It is a Japan-based. It's a Japan-based company. So there are round ones all over the world. They have this game called Waka. It's a rhythm game. And the controller is a circle that goes all around the screen. The screen is a circle, and you touch the circle to do rhythm, like to play the rhythm. So it senses swipes, it senses moving in towards the screen and out towards the screen. It senses taps. It senses a whole host of things, and the game was probably designed with the controller in mind, and I think that is a relatively unexplored space in the arcade space. It was so interesting to see all of these kids getting good at games from arcades from putting a quarter in the machine. I mean, people get good at games now by just sinking hours into a $60 game, but it's interesting that you could be good at a game by sinking $25 worth of quarters into a game from like at the arcade. So the people that created video games as we know it today were housed in this arcade era. So like Miyamoto, who invented Zelda and Mario, they started with Donkey Kong. He started with Donkey Kong. The documentary also focuses on the unsung voices of the beginning of video games. For example, there was this guy that made the first cartridge-based console, which I had no idea he made this. It was a black man. It was not the inventor of the Atari, though that the inventor of the Atari 2600 did go mainstream with it first. But he invented this, and I can't even remember his name. That's super unfortunate. I took notes, and I couldn't take note. I took a note of his name. I think his name was Lawson. His last name was Lawson, and it was a story told from the perspective of his kids. We're talking about him. His last name Lawson. He invented the Channel F, which was the first cartridge-based home console, which is just unbelievable. They told the story of a gay black man who introduced people with the same skin color of his into Madden football, and they told his story. And it's just nice to hear that there are people, even though, like, based on my experience, there are a lot of people that look like me in the video game space. And I know this. And I see people that look like me all the time, whether it be at, like, Smash tournaments or on video game streaming platforms or on YouTube. I hear and see people that look like me. And it's nice to know that there are a diverse amount of voices in the scene, and that there were some diverse voices that created the scene. Because I have always thought that a diversity of voices engages not only a larger community, but it also introduces ideas that were previously never possible. So that was really nice to know. They also focused on a trans woman who won the first Space Invaders National Championship, which was super cool. The entire doc had this weird focus on esports, which I found to be a bit interesting. Because with early and retro gaming, you don't really... When you think of esports, you think of like Fortnite, you think of Counter-Strike, you think of... Maybe not. You think of League of Legends, you think of Rocket League, you think of the big names. Call of Duty, maybe. But you don't think of like Space Invaders or Pac-Man or Sonic or the Nintendo International Invitational or what have you, the Nintendo World Championships. You don't think of any of those things. And this documentary definitely explores those things to quite the degree. Something I also didn't know and didn't realize is that Nintendo was the Kleenex. This is what I wrote down in my notes. Nintendo was the Kleenex of video games, meaning Nintendo dominated 98% of the video game market when the NES came out, which is just an absurd number. And the reason why I say it's the Kleenex of video games is because when my mom used to be like, hey, can you hand me a Kleenex? I would be like, don't you mean a tissue or something like that? And she'd be like, no, it's called a Kleenex. It's a Kleenex. Or like, I need a Band-Aid instead of I need a bandage. They are... The product is synonymous with what it is used for. So everyone was saying, I need to play the Nintendo when they were actually talking about the Sega Genesis. And something else that I didn't realize is that the Sega Genesis was marketed as like the cool kids. They were marketed as the cool kids. Sonic was considered cool, which is just baffling to me because Sonic is so uncool. Right now, in the grand scheme of things, Sonic is so uncool. It's hilarious, especially with the movie that just came out. But this is a television podcast, not a movie podcast. If it comes out in the theaters, I'm not talking about it. If you see it at the Oscars, not talking about it. They also talked about D&D. D&D was a huge part of me in high school, which is, I think it recently gained more popularity in the 2010s. But they talked about how D&D was essentially the foundation of RPG gaming. The RPGs that you see, like Skyrim, and the RPGs like Final Fantasy, they don't exist without the text-based RPGs, role-playing games, and they don't exist without the tabletop RPGs, like D&D. I'm currently in a 6-month-long campaign of this role-playing game similar to D&D called Call of Cthulhu. And as of recording this, it's probably going to end tonight, which is super sad. But it's these moments where you get to be a character and kind of just hang out with your buddies and goof around, but at the end of the day, tell a really solid story. It's nice. It brings me back to a time where things were, I don't know, simple, if I can say that as a 23-year-old dude. They also talk about fighting games. Fighting games, obviously great. I'm a huge fan of fighting games. I'm a competitive Smash Bros. Ultimate player, so this section definitely had I had a soft spot for this section. I will say, also they talked a lot about how Congress has simply no idea what it's doing in the space of technology at all. Zero clue. Historically, and now with like the recent Facebook hearings and all that, it is so overtly clear that Congress has no clue what it is talking about when it comes to governing the tech space. And this was clear in this doc when they were talking about this thing called Night Trap, I believe it was called. Night Trap was this experimental game where it was like a VHS type thing where you like switching between VHS tapes and such. And Congress just had a field day. They were like, this is violent, this is horrible, I can't believe we're shelling this out to our kids. And meanwhile, then the news networks like flash instantly to plane crashes, killing 10, and showing like the rubble and showing like someone's house on fire and stuff like that. The network who has the slogan, if it bleeds, it leads, is doing the exact same pearl clutching that is doing pearl clutching towards violent video games, which is highlighted in the documentary. But good did come out of it. It shows that the ESRB, the rating system for video games, comes out, and ultimately that did more good than bad. But overall, and of course the documentary goes into more detail than I just went, but overall, I would give the documentary a solid 8 out of 10. It did a really good job. The graphics were fantastic. The storytelling that it did with the specific people that they interviewed was really, really spectacular. You could tell that there was artistry behind the documentary, not just in its subject, meaning video games, how video games are art, but also in its storytelling as a documentary. Like I said, the graphics. 8 out of 10, fantastic doc. Next up, we're going to be talking about Perfect Bid, the man who knew too much. So stick around, and if you stick around till the end, I'll be talking about YouTube and Twitch.tv and what it means to be a Let's Player. So stick around, and I'll see you then.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. My name is Trey Plotnicki. Welcome back to the GSMC podcast, the television podcast. Now we're going to talk about the 2017 documentary Perfect Bid, The Man Who Knew Too Much. This documentary was suggested to me by my sister. She watches television game shows, daytime TV game shows, like no one else I have ever seen in my life. You name it, Let's Make a Deal, Price is Right, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You name it, she's watching it. Like GSN network on, or the GSN channel on 24/7 with that. And to be fair, I joined in quite a bit when I was little as well. So I'm not going to put too much blame on her for this one because I was super interested in the subject of this one. But if you can guess the perfect bid, this is about The Price is Right. And I figured that this documentary would fit in with this larger gaming theme that I have going on with this episode of the pod. So let's dig in. This documentary focuses on a guy named Ted Slauson, known as Theodore. He has attended 37 Price is Right tapings, which is just absurd considering his geography. He took drives and drives down there. I'm not sure where he lived. He might have moved so he can be closer to LA so he could see more tapings of The Price is Right because he was such a big fan. He got on The Price is Right once, and he did this by studying. He loved The Price is Right, and he saw, as he was watching it a lot, he saw that things weren't as they seemed. Things weren't as random and as just all over the place as one might see. I think the producers of The Price is Right realized, listen, the people that are coming to tapings are people that are in town. They know of the show, and they're like, why not? Let's go to a taping, see if we can win some money. And they're not people that are avid watchers of the show. And definitely not people who watch every episode of the show. So the Price is Right producers figured they could probably save some money on like their research team if they just reuse items, and maybe sometimes reuse items and have those items be slightly different variations of a previous item. For example, options on a car. So like if a car has like automatic window raising, what are those things called? Like cranks versus automatics. Whether or not it has like 4 cup holders or 2, it would slightly fluctuate the price, and then you can get away with using a brand new item. So Ted Slauson started studying. He started studying the prices because he saw that they were repeating stuff, and he made his own Price is Right video game. This was very reminiscent of High Score on Netflix. These people just making games to satisfy their own needs. Like, they were the game. Like, they made the game for them, not for other people. So he made this game to practice the games on the show. He made the game to practice just guessing prices for the initial bid. And he practiced and practiced. He took a long drive for his first taping all the way down, and he drilled these prices into his head. And I don't think it was until past his, I think it was his 8th or 9th taping that he finally got on the show, but he didn't make it to the showcase because he missed the wheel. The wheel is completely random, and if you miss the wheel, that's it. It's very unfortunate that past that, skill is just out of the question. He actually went to so many tapings of The Price is Right that Bob Barker started recognizing him, and people started looking for him in the audience so they can get prices from him. So, Price is Right is different than Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, right? Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, there was also a doc called Major Fraud that came out in, I'm pretty sure it was the earlier 2000s. Early 2000s-ish. I remember watching it on YouTube. It was this guy that cheated in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And the way he cheated, he had a friend in the audience who would cough after he read a clue. After his so the person who's on the stand would read each and every clue, one by one, and then his friend in the audience would be on his phone or on Google or something, or he would know it, and he would cough when he read the clue, tipping his friend off that is in the circle, that is the major. And, obviously he got found out. Because there wouldn't be a documentary if he didn't get found out. What was different for Ted, though, was he had the knowledge in his head. If had this guy studied and he had the knowledge in his head, then he wouldn't have been cheating. Ted just knew it. And Price is Right, it encouraged people shouting out prices. Because if 10, 20 people, 10, 20, 30 people, the entire audience is shouting out prices at these people, if they listen to the right person, then go for it. But Ted, people began to catch on that if he's in the audience, he knows his prices. 110% he knows his prices. So it's just this really cool moment too in the documentary when Bob is talking to Ted and Bob and Ted are playing off each other. And he made this shirt. So if you're on Price is Right, you're more likely to get picked if you have a shirt on that is going to look good on TV. Because at the end of the day, they're making a TV show. They need to have some entertaining stuff, and the people are what's entertaining. Bob is on your side. The entire audience is on your side. So the people who are winning the prizes are the entertainment. So they need to pick people who look entertaining. So Ted wore a shirt that said, "I'm here to kiss," who is it? It's Holly. "I'm here to kiss Holly," which is one of the models that he had a crush on or something. And there's this really nice moment between the two of them. She gave him his number or something, and they've been talking for a while, especially at the making of, at the time them making the documentary. And it's just it's really heartfelt that his connection with the show has gotten to a point where he is a part of it. He was essentially a part of the show. Unfortunately, Bob Barker retired after 35 years. He hosted the show for 35 years, and I think it was his 50th anniversary in show business, which is an absurdly long time. I can't imagine the stress of that. I mean, if you're at the show for 35 years, I guess you have a feeling that there is some job security in The Price is Right for Bob Barker, seeing as his name is essentially synonymous with The Price is Right. So he retires. This new guy, Drew Carey, comes on, and as well as a new set of producers. So the producers would mingle with people outside before the show. Obviously, they all knew Ted because Ted came so much. So when Drew left, or not Drew, when Bob left and Drew came on and a new set of producers came on, the first year, so they changed the rules a bit. So people who have been on the show before and have not been on for 10 years can come back and play again. So Ted thought, oh my God, this is my chance. This is my chance to play again, because he had been slacking on prices and stuff over the years since he had been on the show, and then he didn't make it, and he didn't get to show his prowess in the Showcase Showdown. So he said, this is finally my chance after slacking off for a couple years. So he made a new game, 35th anniversary game, after they had changed the rules. 1,900 prices he memorized perfectly, and he said in the doc that he can get it under an hour. Just a brilliant guy, and he using the shapes of the products to guide him towards the correct price. He knew his prices like the back of his hand. He always knew stuff was like a toss-up, but he knew how to guesstimate for trips and such. And he gets back on he goes to more tapings. He keeps going. He keeps shouting out the right prices. And eventually, he meets this guy in line who, I can't remember his name. I wish I wrote his name down. But he got on the show, and he made the wise decision of befriending Ted. This was a key move for him. It's a key move for anybody, but especially for him. Drew Carey's hosting. He gets on the show. Ted is doing his usual thing. He's shouting out every answer. He's right on the money for every answer. Obviously, if you're listening to Ted the whole way through, you're going to get it right. He makes it. He finally does it. He makes it to the Showcase Showdown. And he's like, dang, he's strapped for words. He's looking into the audience for help. He's trying to desperately find out what to do here. He looks to the audience. He sees Ted either saying the answer or mouthing the answer, and he guesses right on the money when it comes to it. Right on the money. To the dollar. Perfect. So he gets both showcases, valued at $55,000 or something stupid like that. And it's at this point, as I was watching from the beginning, I felt as though this guy Ted Slauson, the subject of the documentary, was acting a bit somber, as if this journey with The Price is Right hurt him in some way. And that was it was clear. It was really clear that this was something painful to talk about. I mean, obviously there is a light in his eyes when he was like, I finally got to kiss Holly when I came on the show. There was motion and life in his eyes when he was talking about getting these prices correct, when he was talking about helping friends. But then I understood why he felt such pain with the show. Because after the perfect bid, right after the perfect bid happened at the set, something stopped. The production came out on stage. Drew was getting messages in his ear. The producers were running around. They thought the show was dead at this point because they thought somebody had figured it out. They thought someone snuck in notes into the studio. But what it was really was Ted. And it felt I think he felt like they had forgotten him. That he was a part of the show for a long, long time. I mean, the show probably had something stupid 200 tapings a year. and 200 runs a year. But Ted was there for like 30 of them, over the course of however many years it took him to get on the show. I mean, he went to back-to-back tapings a couple times. He went there like 30, 40 times, which is kind of absurd. But he was always a subject of the show, of the taping when he was on, because he was getting stuff right on the money, and contestants were looking for him. So when this perfect bid happened, and they changed the rules, and they changed the way that they produced the show, they never have the same product on twice. They probably had to increase costs so much. Drew Carey thought it was never going to make to air, and he was done, because like the second Bob Barker leaves, all of a sudden there's a scandal. But in reality, it was just Ted's brilliance that went unrecognized. And the guy that guessed the perfect bid completely took credit for it. So I think Ted was happy that he got the chance to tell a story, but I could tell that there was some sort of grading, there was some sort of emotion that was backing his retelling of the story. So I was really happy to get to watch this. I was really happy to get to watch High Score. I think these two documentaries are in high recommends for me. I would give this documentary a 7 or 8 out of 10. I love the simplicity. The storytelling of it is very cool. There's only one. The only custom interviews are the ones with Ted, which is super cool because it makes it clear that he is the subject of the story, which I liked a lot. Go watch both of these documentaries. This concludes Hot Doc Tuesday. Stick around. We have 2 more segments coming right up. I'm going to be talking about Netflix reality shows and Netflix reality game shows to keep on this gaming theme. And then I'm going to talk about the YouTube space and the YouTube Let's Play space if you stick around to the end. So don't go anywhere, and we will be right back. Come back next week for another Hot Doc Tuesday, though.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC podcast. I am your host, Trey Plotnicki, and going along with today's theme, I'm going to talk about some game shows on Netflix. Not really game shows, but more so reality competition shows. We're just going to be diving into Netflix's reality shows. Good excuse to talk about it. So a while ago, I watched Love is Blind, and recently you could tell Netflix has been diving into some and dabbling into reality television. I think Netflix is a good platform for that. I'm sure they're super cheap to produce. It's also so much fun to watch. Man, I love it. Do I love reality television? It's just so much fun. I think being in the entertainment industry and being an actor in the entertainment industry, once again, I've been told in classes in the past that every minute you watch reality television is a minute or is a dollar that you're taking away from your own future paycheck, and I don't care. So back to Love is Blind. Love is Blind was my introduction into Netflix's reality television. It's a super interesting show, super interesting concept that doesn't necessarily stop at its title. Frequently we see a lot of these reality shows that are like the first of their kind. Like, I want to see them explore more with the idea. Love is Blind completely explores this this blind dating idea. It is insane. So, first and foremost, Love is Blind is a show where it begins as blind dating. Now, as we know it, blind dating is like you go to a restaurant with someone who you've been set up, who is like a friend of a friend, and you don't really know who they are. You just have their phone number, and you said, all right, let's meet at Wendy's. I don't know. I haven't been on many blind dates, but you go. So that is what I believe blind dating is in our foray. Love is Blind takes it to an extreme I have never thought possible. They don't see each other. They just hear their voices. They are in two separate rooms. The guys and the ladies, they are living together, and they talk about people with each other, but they never meet each other. And then they meet up with their choices all in one. There's like this big reveal, and most reality shows would end there. They would be like, oh, they met up and they look like they're enjoying each other. Then they do one episode after that where it's like, where are they now? Are they getting married? Do they still like each other? But no, the Love is Blind couples, the people who chose someone, they spend 30 days with each other in, I think, Mexico, like on vacation. It's insane. Like, and then they go back and meet family and see everybody that like their hometown and where they live and stuff. And then they get married at the end. And I won't spoil it because I'm not one to spoil reality television. Reality television is very sacred to watch for the first time. It's like it's like sport, you know? Like if you don't watch it when it's live, it's not like you're not getting the full experience. But the show was such an interesting experiment, and the show felt like Netflix's first foray into reality television, at least from what I can remember. I don't quite remember what else Netflix has done, like in terms of producing reality television before Love is Blind. But that brings me to The Floor is Lava, a tried and true reality television show. And I watched a few episodes. I haven't watched the whole thing. It's one of those things you can't really binge it because I watched 3 episodes in a row, and the charm was kind of gone. But I could see myself coming back to it and like finishing it out, you know? So The Floor is Lava plays on a classic children's game where you get to point A to point B in the family room or the living room or the dining room, but the floor is lava, and it is really highly produced. The host is great. He has a great voice. He encourages the players. There's like a tutorial to the thing where they could show you all the routes through the room. There are interactable objects and such, usually paintings for like bridges. And it looks very cheap to produce too. The sets are really nice. The exception is like the floor is literally, well, not literally. It's looks like lava, and it just brings to life these like childhood memories. And all of these obstacle course shows, I think they survive on you wanting to do it, you know? They survive on, wow, that just looks like so much fun. I wish I could run those courses, you know? And the prize at the end, the team who gets the most people passed, it's done in teams of 3. If you get like 3 people passed in a short amount of time, you're pretty much guaranteed the W. They get $10,000. So cheap to produce. So they're giving away like $10,000 an episode. They reuse like 6 of the sets, because I saw it was like basement. Like there were a bunch of there. So the way it's titled is like basement level 1, bedroom level 1, planetarium level 1. So later in the episodes, I was looking through how many there are. They say like basement level 2, bedroom level 2. So they do reuse the sets and have different people run them. So they do get at least some sort of I don't know, yeah, you know what I mean. They get some sort of like repetition, and they get some value out of the sets that they create. And the sets are beautiful. The sets are so cool. The water bubbling and the water splashing out. It does look like it hurts though. Like it looks like everything's padded. Like everything that would typically have like a hard edge and might like really, really hurt looks super duper padded, which I am appreciative of. I'm glad that they thought of safety, because Wipeout looked like it hurt. Period. Wipeout looked like it was just chaos all the time. And I think Ninja Warrior, obviously, there are people that train on these courses, so the edges are a little harder, and it's also the edges in American Ninja Warrior are, they're designed to be consistent. Whereas, like, if you padded everything, it would just be. It would kind of be inconsistent because you don't get as much traction. Yeah, you know what I mean. Floor is Lava is dumb fun. It's dumb fun. They're half-an-hour episodes. It's really fun to listen to the people's dynamic in the room. In the first episode, they had like, it was really funny because I was like, oh my god. So it was like a mom and two teenagers, and the mom and her two teenagers, and then it was 3 triplets that were like jacked, and it was essentially like carbon copies of each of them, and all 3 of them are like definitely go to the gym regularly. And then it was pastors, like co-workers, like people who work in a church. And not to say that people who work in a church aren't jacked, but they definitely weren't. And I was like, oh my god, the triplets definitely have this hands down, because there's so much, like, especially in that course, there was a ton of upper body strength that you needed for the nets to just get to the exit. But the triplets didn't win. And I guess that shows the balance of it, where it's a measure of teamwork and smarts rather than just pure brute strength and ability to jump. So it's a really fun show. I'm glad that they're exploring reality television like that. But to talk about finally, and to talk about in its totality, and something that has depth and strategy and ways that it can improve, is The Circle. The Circle is a reality competition television show somewhat more akin to Big Brother than it is anything. It's a show that is completely focused on social relationships and pretty much nothing else. And not only social relationships, but more so, I'm trying to find the words for it. It's not quite social relationships, but more so online perception. It's a show that started in the UK, it has 2 seasons in the UK, and it finally came over to the US, and Netflix got the rights, and Netflix is producing it, which is fantastic. I'm very glad Netflix is doing that, because they seem to have a good head on their shoulders about what fans want in terms of reality television and how ideas should be expanded and what we want to see and all that. But The Circle is simple. The episode begins, and it's not necessarily at the end of every episode there is, like, someone gets kicked out, but let's just say, to explain the show simply, that at the end of the episode someone gets kicked out. The Circle is a online social media platform. You create your profile, you message people. It like starts at, 8 a.m., ends at 8 p.m., ends at dusk. And at in the middle of the episode, everyone votes on who is the most likable, essentially. So it's like you rank your favorite, like who you're closest with in the house, and number 1 and number 2, sometimes just number 1 and sometimes just number 2, or sometimes just number 1 and sometimes number 1 and number 2. I think it's almost always number 1 and number 2. They decide who they want to evict. And this is purely based off rankings. If you're the least liked, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going, but you can not like someone and just send them home even if they were ranked 3rd as being likable. It's a super complex and interesting show in terms of its potential strategy, in terms of what it tries to accomplish. I really like the show. I would like to be on this show. I think I could win. But there is a catch a bit. You can be a catfish. Now, in terms of the online space, a catfish means that you aren't who you say you are. For example, there's this one guy named Seaburn that was catfishing as his girlfriend Rebecca. So he was being perceived as a younger woman instead of a man. And I thought that's really interesting. And as the show goes on, as people leave, more spots in the circle get filled, which I have a problem with, because it gets to one point in the show, and I can say this without really spoiling, that somebody comes on really close to the end and essentially gets a free pass into the finale. I don't think that's right. I think you should be able to work for your work for these relationships. Obviously, people with longer relationships are going to be more of a clique, more trustworthy. So that seems super duper flawed in how they produce the show. As people come on, obviously the people that come on are going to have worse relationships than the first 6 people that are in the circle. So I would like to see them play with that formula. I would like to see them change it. Maybe if they want everybody in, put everyone in at the beginning, and that gives us a lot more complexity of relationships. I think what Netflix tries to strive for, and I appreciate this because it's a big issue in Big Brother and Survivor, are the people who leave first and are typically not shown just because there's so many people. Big Brother, I think, typically starts with 16 people. Correct me if I'm wrong, the person that I'm talking to. And Survivor did used to start with 16 people, but now they've expanded to usually 20 people a season. And those first, 3, 4, 5 boots, we don't really know. We don't know these people. But I can say with certainty that I knew everyone that came into the circle. And I felt like everyone that was watching the circle knew everyone that was coming into the circle. And while this formula does do that well, I think it ruins the game aspect. And I do think it's pretty unfair for the people that start, because they have to survive the entirety of the circle. And not only do they get an advantage, but they also get a soft disadvantage if anyone wanted to try something tricky. For example, if I were to go on the circle, I would most definitely side with the people that are coming in. I would be hunky-dory with the people that are right off the bat, like the first couple people, if I was one of those first couple of people that came in. And I would side with the newbies, because the newbies always outnumber the old people. Not immediately, but if you band the newbies together, they're going to take out the old people every time. There's just going to be more of them. And you just create a band of newbies, and you just win. Easy win. I would also probably catfish as my mom. I would catfish as my mom. I haven't seen any, there weren't any older, really older people on the show, and I think a older woman, especially, not to say that my mom's an old lady, but I think older women would seem more disarming and would be generally perceived as more likable. And also, it gives you, sway to make mistakes on social media. Because if you see someone that is elderly, obviously they don't really use social media. We can give them a pass. So that'll just free up and allow for mistakes to happen rather than need to cover for mistakes later. Overall, I think The Circle is the best reality show on Netflix right now that Netflix has produced. I'm excited to see what else Netflix comes up with. I think they're going in the right direction with Floor is Lava. It's super cheap to produce. Circle also seems super cheap to produce. So I'm really, really excited to see where they go. In terms of game, The Circle, it doesn't even match Big Brother and Survivor. I want to see them improve upon the formula, obviously. And I'm excited to see if they start filming again. It's a perfect show to film in quarantine. Heck yeah, it is. So I'm really excited to see where else Netflix can go with reality television. And I think that's all I have to say on that matter. So coming up, a different type of reality television, one type of reality television that can be found on YouTube. We're going to explore Let's Plays in our next segment, a different type of television for the younger generation. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the GSMC Television Podcast. I am your host, Trey Plotnicki, and we've reached the end of the show. Now, what I want to talk about is something that is near to me, something that is dear to me, something that has treated me well over the years, and that is... I'm going to get heavy judgment for this. That is the Minecraft Let's Play. Now, Minecraft is a game that came out in 2009, I think. It was made by this guy named Notch for like a 24-hour game jam, which is when you make a game in 24 hours. It never meant to be the best-selling game in history, but it is. It's one of the most popular games of all time, coming out in 2009, 11 years. And in the space of television, I believe that today... those videos, those Minecraft Let's Plays, fit into the larger scope of television. The reason why I bring this up is because I saw an article that was about the TikTok people that were partying. And they, were breaking California laws, while California was heavily spiking, and violated those rules. And they said, this is our livelihood. We have people over and we make TikToks. Are you really going to tell us to stop doing our jobs when we can be doing them and making money? We are part of the largest interconnected reality television show in history. And it made me think. It just got me thinking. They're right. They're completely right. I mean, they're wrong and they shouldn't be throwing parties. But they're right in that they are a huge, interconnected reality television show that doesn't want to stop. If it stops for a second, people are going to get disinterested and leave. I mean, these are minute-long videos. You're talking about an audience that is captivated by a minute-long video. If you give them another piece of candy in another direction, they're going to go somewhere else. So I began thinking about my own consumption of unorthodox media. So, like Twitch TV, like YouTube. I watch a lot of video game tutorials on YouTube, and I did when I was younger. And when I did that when I was younger, I dabbled in making some of my own. It's super fun. It's super fun evident by what I'm doing right now, it's super fun just to talk about what you like. And what I liked back then was playing video games. So I put a camera on the television screen, and I just started talking about it. Now, what I want to talk to you about today is this Minecraft server called Hermitcraft. It is a interconnected server of YouTubers who totaled, I think, have something like 20 million subscribers collectively altogether. They're all not necessarily unique subscribers, but together as a number, that is a huge group of people. They release individually about 2 videos of the server a week. And together, I think there are like 16 people on the server or something like that are currently active. And as a whole, they probably release about 30 videos a week. It is a reality show. But not only is it a reality show, it's a tutorial for people that play Minecraft. It's super interesting. What they do is they have a server, they have a shopping district, they have created their own economy in Minecraft. I specifically watch these people, like this guy named Ethos Lab, who primarily works in Minecraft's coding function, and that's like his claim to fame. I watch this guy named Zuma, who pretty much runs the server. I watch this guy named Iskel, who's I believe a Swede, either a Swede or Finnish. And they all post either daily videos or 4 videos a week, 2 videos a week. And they're all about 20 minutes long. It's television. It's on-demand television on YouTube. It's a reality show. It's fun. There's competition involved. You want to see what's happening next. They're teaching you how to do stuff in the game that wasn't thought possible. They're giving you essentially a walkthrough. It's super duper interesting. And I began thinking about the future of television while thinking about this. A lot of cable is increasing in price, and not too many younger people I know are wanting to buy cable, you know? News organizations are posting their stuff on YouTube. They're posting their stuff online, whether it be their own personal website or their YouTube page. I see a lot of CNN segments such as Anderson Cooper and Chris Cuomo on YouTube. I see a lot of Fox News segments on YouTube. I see a lot of MSNBC segments on YouTube. New York Times op-eds are frequently posted to YouTube. YouTube is becoming its own medium of television. It's proving profitable. And to segue into television gaming and how far we've come from the days that I talked about at the beginning of this podcast, there's also this new monolith called Twitch TV. Now, YouTube's owned by Google. Twitch is owned by Amazon. Twitch.tv is your live television of this gaming industry, you know? You can see esports events like I talked about at the beginning of the podcast, except more like recent esports events like League of Legends, like Rocket League, all of that streams there. You can see just regular personalities, some that I've talked about today, like Etho, like Iskel, like Zuma. You can see them on Twitch.tv, or you can see some of the most popular people that are almost household names, but I don't think anybody that streams on Twitch is a household name at this point. You could see people like Ninja. I think he is the closest thing to a household name, which he slightly dropped out of relevancy for a little bit there when he left Twitch. But he's back in sort of full force now on Twitch. Twitch.tv at any given time, actually I don't think at any given time, at peak hours, Twitch.tv has 3 million live viewers. Now, anybody can stream on Twitch, but only about 1% of the people who stream on Twitch can make a living from it. And a living from it they make. People that have about 1,000 consistent viewers are making upwards of, like, maybe, I don't know. If I'm spitballing, it's like 7,000, 8,000 a month, which is a living. You can genuinely make a living from that just by having 1,000 people watching you play a video game. They have payment models and all that. And I believe kids are more willing to give their money to someone that they are seeing on screen than they are a cable monolith where it's unclear whether your money is funding what you're watching. I do think Twitch and YouTube are the inevitable future of television. I think it's interesting how YouTube does fund these people and makes and this is their living. Whether it be through ads, whether it be through, I don't know, sponsorships. There are some sponsorships that happen in the YouTube space. And there are a ton of sponsorships that happen in the Twitch space. I think a captive live audience is far more susceptible to ad campaigns than like a on-demand YouTube basis. And I once again, I did used to do Let's Plays. This is definitely something that hits close to me. It's so watching them kind of harks back to my high school days. I don't do them anymore because I'm doing this. I found other outlets to get my message out there. But I do think it is a means of expression. A lot of people watch these, a lot of kids watch these people and doing their Let's Plays, and making a Let's Play is how I learned how to edit. It's how I learned how to shop for microphones. I wouldn't have the microphone I have right now that I'm speaking into if it weren't for Minecraft Let's Plays, if it weren't for Twitch.tv. I wouldn't have knowledge of like pacing in a video. These people that do these Minecraft Let's Plays, they are crafting a story at the end of the day. They pull pranks on each other. They require you to have prior existing knowledge of them the same way a television series would. And they've done like 30 episodes of this thing. Like there's 30 episodes in this current season. There's seasons. There's seasons of these Minecraft servers. So I just think it is pure and simple. The future of entertainment lies in these two services. Chess has made a huge comeback on Twitch. People are watching chess by the tens of thousands. Yesterday I went on Twitch and I saw that there were like 70,000 watching like a game of chess. Can you believe that? Just standing around watching chess. A lot of people equate like the size of viewership to a stadium. Like there's this one guy who is on the Hermitcraft server, like I talked about, the Minecraft server, and he streams on YouTube. YouTube does have a live aspect. He streams on YouTube, and he has like 40,000 people watching him stream. 40,000. He has 2 million subscribers, and 40,000 people watch him live stream. And he frequently makes the comment, "This is a stadium." An entire stadium of people is watching him play Minecraft. And while this doesn't compare to cable numbers often are like 3 million because a lot of people in the older generation are still watching cable television. And there are live streaming platforms where you could watch, like, I don't know, the State of the Union free online, and that those get clumped up into the numbers. And there are streaming sites online that cable uses. But I think this, for the younger generation, for the generation for the generation of hobbyists, is definitely something to look towards. Look to. I always say towards wrong. Look towards. I don't know. It's something to look to as the next generation of television. I want to thank you all for listening. I had a lot of fun today. I had a lot of fun recording this. Thanks for listening to the GSMC Television Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. If you can, please subscribe. That helps us out a lot, and what helps us out even more is leaving a review if you like the episode. And if you want to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, just look up the GSMC Podcast Network. I repeat, the GSMC Podcast Network. For everything podcasts. There are tons and tons of shows on this network. So thank you. And please, have a good rest of your week. That would make me the happiest person on earth.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.